All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Today we are going to be talking about BIM for owners. I'd ask before we begin that you please reserve all of your questions until the end. We will have a Q&A session in case you have anything. And just post those questions into the little applet. Okay. First off, I'd like to introduce Microdesk, who we are and who your presenters are today. As a company, we are an architecture, engineering, construction, and operations consulting firm. We've been in business for over 25 years with 13 locations across the United States and the UK, with over 160 specialists, technologists, and software developers dedicated to project delivery and assisting our clients with any of their needs. Some of the services that we provide include building information modeling. This can be as simple as coming into your office or working here at ours and actually actively working on your projects. Enterprise strategy and workflow assessments, finding out where those pain points are in your business and how you can maybe do certain things a little bit more effectively. Technology management, mentoring, and support. This encompasses tech support, training, hardware and software analysis. We do it all. And then application development. If there's anything you find that you are doing repetitively, you need a plugin, an add-in, some sort of script, coding, we have a team specialized in delivering those things as well. A little bit about your host today. My name is Greg Deliso. I am an AECO Strategic Implementation Manager, and my focus, more recently than not, has been in the construction and owner workspace.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Akira Togawa. I'm a senior consultant with Microdesk. I specialize in MEP design and fabrication services, and I'm a disciplined mechanical engineer.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gregory. I'm an AECO Strategic Implementation Manager in our Washington, D.C. office. I focus on construction coordination with BIM and cloud technology, and I'm a Revit MEP certified professional.
So today, we are going to be talking about BIM for owners. We're going to cover some of the basics to start. What is BIM? We're going to talk a little bit about the state of the industry and how it affects owners. And then we're going to cover some other topics, a roadmap to success, things you can look for in terms of planning how you're going to approach this BIM process, owners' requirements, what you should be asking your consultants and contractors, data management strategies, deliverable review, and ensuring success. So to kick it off, what is BIM? It's an acronym that's been floating around our industry for nearly 2 decades. Most of you have probably heard the term used before in the context of your projects. But really, what is it and how can it benefit you? Building information modeling, most often called BIM, is an intelligent model-based process that provides value across the life cycle of a project, any project. What makes BIM special is not the fact that it's simply 3D, but that it retains the information driving your project. For example, in BIM, a wall is something made up of concrete, of masonry, or of carpentry elements. It has specific material properties, and it's not just 2 lines on paper. Although BIM has become synonymous with building design, the fact is that the definition, and more importantly, the potential value of BIM, is the same in every industry. The BIM process involves creating and using an intelligent 3D model to inform and communicate project decisions, whether that's to streamline design and construction processes or to assist in the establishment of day 1 building operational readiness for facilities management. A process shift to building information modeling can fundamentally improve the way we plan, design, build, and manage our projects. For more information on the fundamentals of BIM, there's a number of resources already available, but the focus today is to arm owners with some strategies or questions that will enable you to have success in implementing BIM. Currently, more and more owners are finding that traditional workflows have proven to be insufficient for their needs in terms of cost and schedule. These workflow flaws then become magnified during operations, where minor data discrepancies can become significant problems. In a recent report by the Economist's Intelligence Unit, nearly $16 billion are being lost annually due to poor data management strategies and siloed information remaining unshared across parties. In a market dominated by low margins, aggressive procurement, accelerated schedules, talent shortages, and uncertain work pipelines, project stakeholders across the board are trying to find ways to mitigate risks and cost while improving productivity. The statistics shown here aren't promising, but they also shouldn't be surprising. I expect many of you will be familiar with the following scenario. You've put the project out to bid, you have a finalized design in hand, and you select one of the lowest qualified bidders. Things appear to be going well, great even. The contractor is mobilized, materials are being procured, and construction's underway. As you all know, all of a sudden, your contractor is calling you saying that there's been a massive bust in the field. Maybe the design mechanical equipment won't fit in the assigned space because the specified unit doesn't match the placeholder in the design drawings. Or maybe there was an unexpected clash between the architectural finish and the structural supports. Or maybe any number of things could have gone wrong. All the while, those change orders are adding up, ballooning your costs, and delaying schedules. How many of you expect this to happen already? How many of you plan for it in your budgets and schedules that you've initially communicated? And how much insight is there really into the schedule and status of these various construction conditions? Let's take it a step further. Construction's now finished. You have your O&Ms in hand, and you've got binders and file cabinets full of paper. You have tons of data on how to keep your building running efficiently with little downtime. But who's managing this information? What strategies do you have in place to handle that? How do you ensure that it's kept up to date, even after renovations to your building? How long does it take your building manager to find the data they were looking for? And how can you be sure that preventative maintenance is being performed instead of just simply fixing things once they're already broken? Any one of these issues is costing you time and money, which more often than not, owners are bearing the brunt of. So how do we fix it? There has to be a better, more efficient way. And more often than not, our answer is going to be BIM. When we look at the traditional process on the left, this is what we understand the traditional way of transferring information to be. We can see that isolated flows of information are being transmitted to one or a handful of project stakeholders at a time. Information is stuck in what we call individual silos, and rarely will two parties both be using the most up-to-date information project-wide. The BIM process aims to fix that by creating a single source of truth, the Building Information Model or BIM Cloud environment, where every party stakeholder has instant access to accurate, actionable, and most up-to-date information. Instead of navigating through stacks of paper, the BIM environment maintains all of your information digitally, and through this single, consistent source, your consultants and contractors will be able to deliver more predictable results and are able to drive a project delivery process that's both economically beneficial and ecologically sustainable. The most important aspect of a successful BIM process is planning, and as an owner, you need to navigate that process. The roadmap can be as simple as something shown here, or much more rigorously defined as shown here. Either way, there needs to be a plan. Similar to how you define design criteria to ensure that the building received is to your standards, the same exact thing needs to be done for BIM. So why would we do it? Studies have shown that businesses benefit from BIM in the following ways. We're seeing a reduction in document errors and omissions, reduced rework out in the field, reductions in construction costs, shortened project durations, and fewer claims and litigation. And in a survey done by Dodge Analytics, we can see that both US owners and UK owners have seen an appreciable benefit to BIM.
Okay, so now that we have a good understanding of BIM and BIM uses, it's time for us to consider how the owner can go about planning for BIM use on any given project. The planning process should begin with first understanding the capabilities of BIM and also looking at what specific business needs are required. And through that process, we can look at linking business needs with BIM capabilities, and this will start to formulate what those BIM requirements shall be on a given project or initiative. Some of the requirements of BIM can be document control, change control, looking at budgets and schedules. And one of the things to consider here is that the owner's requirements from BIM are not necessarily the same as the BIM requirements for the GC, the design teams, or the subcontractors. So the owner really needs to take a good look at how the owner is going to use BIM versus how the other stakeholders on the project are going to use BIM, and keep their goals clearly defined. Once these steps have been laid out, it is now time to implement the owner's requirements, and this comes in the form of written standards and execution plans. The important thing here is to also look at contract language, and many times this is the owner and their subs or other stakeholders' first foray into looking at the requirements on a given project, and these are really the opportunities for the owners and their stakeholders to either make modifications to the requirements or to clarify certain things or to ask and receive questions from other parties on what exactly they need or don't need on any given project. This is important as well for during construction because what might happen sometimes is vague contract language can end up leaving interpretation, and in some cases in the middle of a project it's too late at this point for us to figure out exactly what the intent of specific requirements was, so having them clearly detailed is extremely important. Some other requirements that we can look at are putting all of our requirements into 6 large buckets, and some of you on the call might have seen these before, but these are the multi-dimensions of BIM. And we start at 1D, which is really the most primitive shape of BIM, and this is looking at during a schematic or planning stage at just strategies of BIM. And this is a very high level thing that most owners should be very integrated within, because this sets the foundation for the higher levels of dimension of BIM usage. So doing research at this point to look at site conditions, looking at the skill levels of the design teams, of the construction teams, and looking at what types of scheduling will be done on this project sets the tone for the rest of the project. For example, some of the other requirements that an owner might want are key stakeholders might want to look at costing and estimating as a means through BIM as a means to get that those metrics in place. And in those cases, then the owner can dictate that the GC or other stakeholders use 4D or 5D BIM on these projects. And these 6 dimensions are industry accepted terms that don't just look at individual components within them, but holistically that a 4D model should include not just a piece for time, but integration of time and schedule across the model. So knowing that we can look at the way that a building will be constructed via a virtual design process. When we get to the implementation piece of owner requirements, everyone is coming in at a great time, and that is because owner requirements are gaining traction and are becoming formalized here in the United States. The National Institute of Building Sciences has developed an extremely robust guide for developing national standards and requirements. This is great for the planning stage, the implementation stage, the writing stage of this. There's a source guide link on this slide deck for where everyone on this call can get these resources. So summing it up on owner requirements, the foundation for good requirements comes from a very solid understanding of BIM itself and what it can do. The capabilities of BIM, tying them into what the business needs are for the exact project that you're on, and then making sure that this drives collaboration with outside parties. So making sure that the design teams are collaborating and communicating actively, using BIM as a vehicle for communication, and also the owner making sure that they're leading from the front, showing that they're readily adopting and sponsoring the BIM initiative will give the other stakeholders on these projects the ammunition and fuel that they need to keep moving. And the owner being savvy and the owner taking interest will really help the other teams drive this initiative forward.
So as we can see here, we have a number of BIM use cases available for anyone in the industry, and they are ranked in order of most common appearance over the past few years. We're going to cover just a few to give you some insight as to what owners can or should expect when their teams are using BIM. So BIM offers much more than the storyboards of the past, with the ability to produce high-quality renderings of buildings throughout all phases of construction. Whether you need a presentation quality image or walkthrough with sophisticated graphics to communicate the space to a tenant, or some way to isolate various MEP systems throughout your facility to identify routing when an issue arises, BIM has you covered. Some owners have gone as far as to provide tenants with a virtualized reality environment to view their space at the human scale prior to it even being built.
BIM coordination is superior to traditional methods. The traditional 2D design process involves multiple disciplines working with different software and communicating on printed 2D plans. As a result, many construction teams rely on manual methods to perform clash resolution, a process that can be slow, prone to mistakes, and it is reactive. The opportunity to use BIM technology to be proactive and avoid coordination issues in design and construction lies with the ability to combine design information into a single coordinated model. Many different 3D software programs used by architects, engineers, and fabricators can be combined into this coordination model. Here it becomes automated to identify and easier to resolve clashes before construction even begins. Then after the 3D BIM coordination, more accurate and reliable coordination or coordinated construction documents can be produced. Software such as Navisworks, BIM 360 Glue are ideal to provide the clash detection tools you need your design and construction teams to use.
With BIM, we can also look at cost estimation. So traditional methodology has owners and contractors procuring up to 30% more material than is required to account for unforeseen circumstances. However, BIM enables us to have more accurate cost estimates by letting cost estimators collect and synchronize design data and images as they calculate material quantities for all their building systems and components. At any stage of the design, BIM technology can extract a more accurate bill of materials and spaces to use for cost estimation. This enables bidders to have a more accurate understanding of what will be required, and they'll be able to provide their owner, you, with more competitive prices.
Another use case gaining traction with owners is schedule review through 4D sequencing. What this means is intelligently linking the project schedule and construction activities with the federated BIM models. This way, all project stakeholders can see the schedule and digital constructability together. Constructability issues may not always become apparent when reviewing a Gantt chart, but can become glaringly obvious when viewed through a simulation of a building being erected. For example, looking at all footings and piers not being poured or placed prior to a slab pour, or ceiling installation prior to sheet metal. Another use case for 4D sequencing is looking at taking larger activities and breaking them up into smaller ones by using 3D spatial areas, which would be a challenge without seeing a floor plan.
In the field, contractors are tasked with interpreting design intent from 2D drawings. When working with a coordinated 3D model, contractors get an exact visual representation of the completed work before it's built. They can view the 3D design and all related data and documents in the field on a laptop, on an iPad, or even on a smartphone. They also have increased ability to prefabricate materials and deliver them to the field just in time, because their exact location on site has already been coordinated with all other trades. Today's contractors are leveraging the coordinated BIM model to increase efficiency in the field with laser accurate point layout, virtual reality in construction office, and mixed reality on the construction site. All of the design, construction, and commissioning data can be managed in a building information model and shared with operations and maintenance teams for their direct use in the 3D model environment, as well as exported into their facilities management software. Now I'll speak a little bit about data management. Selecting a data exchange medium or platform is critical for owners to maintain control of their project and its data. The right platform will optimize the efficiency of the many teams that must collaborate to construct your project. I'll go into much more detail over the next 5 slides. So why shouldn't you allow the design or construction teams to choose and organize the data exchange medium for you? Architects, engineers, and construction teams have different priorities. Making everyone use one team's point solution is not ideal for everyone else to collaborate over the life cycle of a project. You will also lose the opportunity to control all the project data and make decisions based on this data. You can stop your teams from siloing data, duplicating data, working on out-of-date data, and save everyone time by using one platform rather than transmitting between multiple systems. So why shouldn't you use non-AECO data platforms? None of these tools fully solve the coordination challenge for the AECO industry because they weren't built for the design-based collaboration process. Common tools such as FTP or SharePoint solutions can be expensive and complex to implement. Design files still have to be downloaded and saved to your local hard drive. Network drives for sharing internally are great, but they're complicated to share with external parties for security reasons. Designers are adopting cloud storage. However, these platforms are not built to manage design data. CAD and BIM files are not viewable in these cloud storage applications. Again, users have to download the files locally, risking multiple versions of the same file edited by multiple teams. Lastly, AEC point solutions only solve one need at a time, and they're hard to integrate with each other. They don't support the project lifecycle collaboration. So siloed data is dangerous. During any phase of a project lifecycle, siloed data is inefficient and always means teams are working on out-of-date information and multiple versions of the same file. When siloed data is transmitted between phases, there's a loss of information and rework to recreate the next phases model. Using a coordinated BIM workflow that uses the same platform throughout the lifecycle of a project is much more efficient. So how can you get a lifecycle long single source of truth that provides data information and stability, data uniformity and stability on all project data by using an exchange platform designed for the life of a building? And right now, the best choice for that is BIM 360. The final part of data management is how you can use your data exchange data to make informed decisions. Stay in control of the project by monitoring progress and performance of the teams and their design. Monitor project milestone performance and know ahead of time when things are ahead or behind. Easily identify collaboration issues between teams since the data exchange is tracked. And you have a portal to monitor progress and provide input if it's needed. In summary, you can gain valuable insight that is calculated from the collective data and use it to make informed decisions.
Okay, so the owner has already established BIM protocols for a project. They've identified needs, they've identified business cases, and have implemented a data exchange protocol. The next thing that the owner needs to consider is when deliverables are sent through the design exchange platform, how do we review them? What are we reviewing them for? And what are we doing with those deliverables? The important thing to think about deliverables when it comes to BIM is that deliverables contain large data sets, extremely large databases full of information, and it's the role of the person reviewing that data to determine if it can be turned into information. And that's really what the owner requires for use is information, but not data. So in order to review the deliverables, here are a couple items that we prescribe as checklists for what to look for. First and foremost, you receive a file, can it be opened? Then you look at, okay, great, the file is openable, is it usable? Meaning, can I use it in the design platform? Can I see all of the information that's contained within it? And then lastly, does this data fit within the prescribed information tracking mechanisms that we need? For example, do all of the geometric components within this model match the schedule? Can I schedule this information? Can I get cost from how many walls or doors or furniture are being put into this model? These are the things that the owner should be reviewing. Other things to look for are why was this deliverable created? If it's something that is being delivered for a first time, we should check it against the standards and make sure that the authoring agency, whether it be an MEP firm or an architectural firm, is following the standards. And what this does is really sets the tone for the rest of the deliverables, making sure that the stakeholders are adherent to the owner's requirements. If it's a revision to a document, why is that document being revised? Let's look at past versions of that document or comments in meeting minutes and see what was the need to revise that document, and is the revised document meeting or addressing the changes that are required? Some more practical examples of deliverable review could be when a 3D model is supplied, that the owner or an appointed BIM advocacy group coordinate that 3D model against other disciplines or other trades to make sure that there are no conflicts. But another important thing to consider is that the GC should also be doing deliverable review. Each stakeholder should be doing deliverable review. And the owner should be coming up with a clear list of review tasks that are within their purview and things that the GC should be reviewing. So for example, the coordination example that I just provided should really be something that a general contractor does prior to accepting any deliverable from some of their subs. But that's not to say that an owner can also do an independent review using a BIM consultant to make sure that there's checks and balances on that coordination. We're going to move on here. So I think we have all of the pieces to put together a great business strategy for using BIM on a given project. But I think having each of those pieces working together isn't the whole story. One of the biggest things is also providing a culture of striving for excellence and through creating realistic expectations on a given project. And when I say expectations, we need to look at the alignment of expectations and what is needed on a project. So in this example, we see that 11% of owners are using standards on any given project, but 43% of them see value in doing so. So it's not enough to say that, yeah, we see this as happening. You need to implement what you believe is true. Or another one is 22% of owners are using a BIM advocate or BIM consultant on a project, but as you can see, more than half of owners agree that it is something that they should be doing. So when it comes to the planning stage, you need to think, is this a realistic goal, and is this something that we will really follow through with through the life cycle of this project? And make sure that the owners are keeping true to their promises and also making sure that any sub-consultants are also following through with the same agenda. If we look at a couple case studies here, we can see that the use of BIM on projects here domestically can save 3 to 5 times the actual cost of BIM services, and that in other countries where BIM adoption and implementation has happened on a much larger scale, there can be 5 times or 3 times the % return on the investment on using BIM wholesale across large industries and projects. And the last thing when ensuring success is looking at some trends that are going on both domestically and overseas. So we see here that between 2014 and 2016 here in the US, the use of BIM consultants on projects full-time has almost doubled between those 2 years. And over in the United Kingdom, currently, BIM consultants are always used on more than half projects that are going on there. So what this tells us is that not only are owners identifying that BIM is important, but they're understanding that there are subject matter experts who should be used to maximize the gains and efficiency for BIM implementation. So putting together a strategy, writing the strategy, looking at the use cases, and ensuring success really all ties into having someone or a party of people who are dedicated towards mandating that BIM is used, enforcing, reviewing design deliverables, and acting as an owner's rep for BIM consulting services. So at this point, let's go ahead and open this up to any questions from the group. Okay, so the question is the national BIM standard identical to the national CAD standard 6.0? It's a great question, and what we're looking at here, the national CAD standard 6.0 details out a lot of the technical requirements. We can look at layer naming convention, file exchange protocols, other means and methods for using CAD across an organization. I think some of these do translate to the national BIM standard, but I think the national BIM standard also includes more workflow requirements. And if we look at specifically for owner requirements, there's even more provisions in there for how to write and enforce BIM on projects, and not necessarily as much on file naming conventions, workspace or work set naming conventions. So I think the two are similar in that they both can prescribe rules of engagement, but the CAD standard is a little bit more technical on the software, where BIM standards are more agnostic on software and more about how to manage data. Okay, we have another question that came in. What is the annual cost to the owner to maintain the BIM model after completion? This is a great question. And so what we're looking at here is one of the things that my colleague Brendan had mentioned, which is using, having the owner own the data exchange process. So what happens is during construction and turnover, if an owner owns the data exchange platform, then once everything is turned over, there's very little cost to ownership to maintain that model, meaning that just housing it and accessing the data is a minimal cost. I mean, we're looking at, you know, an order of magnitude, hundreds of dollars a year to store data in the cloud. But beyond that, if we're looking at maintenance of the model, so that could be further as-builting or future program management. Let's say that capital construction and renovation has occurred and we need to update the model. The cost of maintaining an owner-owned model is significantly less if they already own the data housing software versus another scenario would be that they don't. And now what we need to do is go back to the architect or the GC, find where they're housing the information, transfer that information over to a native repository, and then get all the new teams back up to speed. So costs are fractions of what they would be if another agency owned that model, I guess is the best way to put it. And we can potentially put together by square foot general numbers for ownership that we can provide to the audience when we're done. So Donald asks, is there a construction cost estimate at which it makes sense or not make sense to use BIM? There is, and it is specific to each company, meaning if your BIM group internally or the GC that you're using or the design teams that you're using are extremely savvy with BIM, then it's a lower bar for entry to use BIM. But if there are a lot of upfront academic costs or learning curves required, or if it's a specific project requirement, let's say that we're doing a very complex lab, for example, where coordination is required, then we would use it versus if this is a patch and match tenant fit out where very little coordination is required. I think one of the things that happens is during pre-construction, we can start to look at should deliverables be in BIM or not. And during the design phase or even in the early SD phase, it makes sense to get all the stakeholders involved. And a lot of times, owners will start bringing in pre-construction or construction general contractors during that planning stage to get everybody at a table to see where their level of acumen is at with BIM, and then you can make that decision at that point. Well, thank you everyone for attending this webinar. I hope it was informative. Here on the slide we have our contact information where you can inquire about additional BIM for Owners information or receive a copy or link to this recorded video. Myself, Greg, and Brendan are always available to discuss implementation or planning on how to get up to speed on BIM for Owners, writing requirements, or anything that we've discussed. So feel free to contact us. We hope to hear from you guys soon, and thank you.